just want to call this public informational meeting. This is going to be a very free-flowing meeting. Just a couple of comments. This is a unique project because it involves both Stevens Point and Hall. It's one of the few intergovernmental projects we've experienced in the last maybe 100 years. But certainly very recently, we've seldom had that. We're pleased that it's working out so well. We've got a great communication. I want to just say, first of all, I think we ought to introduce the people up here at the table. Just tell me, John Kosnick is a Hall Alta person. You probably all know Janet. John Holdridge, chairperson. Let's go around. Scott, you want to say?
I'm Scott Badoon. I'm the Director of Public Works for the City of Stevens Point.
Okay.
Joe Skavinsky, Stevens Point Engineering.
Dave Wills, live in the Kirchling subdivision, I'm on the board.
Jan Way, and I'm also a board member.
Yeah. So, and I think particularly Dave.
Stan's
is
over
really-
there. Who's Pete?
Yeah, what? Oh, Peter. We got Peter.
Road foreman on a hooker.
Pete's been out there a lot. And then, so that's who's up here, and I think what I'll do is turn it over to, well, Pete can make some comments too, but David, let me turn it over to Dave Wells, who's really been in close contact. He lives in the area and seen it firsthand. So David.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate everybody showing up tonight. I had told Scott, who had wrote the invite letter a week ago, that I didn't expect too many people here tonight because it was very well written and very informative. And from those of you that I know and recognize, I think most of the folks here are probably live right on Country Club. Can you raise your hands if you live on Country Club? Okay, and then the rest are subdivisions, and we've got some guests here. And we have a Stevens Point Country Club here, right? Is there anyone here from the industrial part, Key Mobility, Spectra, anything like that?
I want to introduce Jeremy Slowinski, the city alta person. I'm glad you showed up, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Good to have you here.
What John said is true. We have a unique agreement in place from 1985 between the city of Stevens Point and the town of Hall that has to do with the road called Country Club that's within the boundaries of the town of Hall. And when this road started blowing up within the last year or two, we knew something had to be done, and we reached out to the city, and they were collaborative with us and said, yes, that agreement for cost sharing and some other stuff still is in play, and we moved forward. Stevens Point has the largest amount of percentage of this road. From a cost standpoint, I believe it's a 70%, and Hull will pay for 30%. So being that, and that they have engineering in their departments, which we don't, they're kind of taking the lead on this particular project. And this is a two-phase project. The first phase, which will be happening coming up this Monday, is basically a patch and repair type project to get us through the rest of this season, hopefully through the entire winter season without the road blowing up, and getting us to a point next spring into early summer where the whole road can be properly reconstructed and engineered, and time can be taken to do that. So it's really a two-phase. We initially were going to try to replace the whole road properly this summer, but because Stevens Point is collaborating with us, I think from what I remember watching on the meetings, that the older people from Stevens Point felt this was a better solution to get a temporary patch, take the time needed in the next 4 to 5 months to properly engineer the replacement, so to do it in phases. And again, they have their oar in the water a little bit deeper than ours, so we're gonna go with their lead. I'm gonna turn this over to Scott Badoon, the Director of Public Works.
Just one comment. What is the timeline? You're gonna start Monday, when do you expect to be?
Well, for this phase, this is, we're estimating this at 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay, very good. Peter, do you have anything you wanna add from your experience on this?
I'm tired of doing pothole work.
You got used to the pothole?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very
Get
tired.
tired.
Okay, Scott, it's
I'm
all.
gonna turn it to Scott, but when we get done, we want you guys to start asking all the questions you have specifically, and we're gonna try to get through this. This is what this is all about tonight. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, thank you, Dave. Yeah, just I guess, you know, a little bit of background, I'm sure you're very well, much more aware of, you know, more so than I have, because you are driving in even more than I do. Although I tend to drive down Country Club myself quite a bit, both for work and even just in my personal life. But I think after, you know, with the stresses that have always been building on this road for a number of years, you know, I think eventually came to a point in time over the last couple of years, I think everyone would probably agree that it's deteriorated very rapidly. Not that it was in pristine condition even a couple of years ago, but over the past couple of years, it's kind of really, I think, even surprised, you know, those of us in, you know, down in the industry that are monitoring these things. So, because of that, we really didn't have an opportunity so much to get caught up on things and get things laid out. So, you know, thus in part, you know, a little bit more information on why the two-part approach to this project, because I think everyone agreed we want to do this right. And whatever we put down as far as whatever the road would otherwise be, when it's put down final, is gonna be the road for probably at least the next 30 or more years. So we need to think about what was put down back in the, you know, mid-80s when this road was otherwise last reconstructed that I know of. You know, may not be exactly the same sort of road that we're anticipating is gonna be needed in the future. So we wanna make sure that we give some thoughts to what's happening today, as well as whatever best we can on people's thoughts and opinions as far as what the future of this road may otherwise be, and make sure that those are all incorporated. And that, of course, takes time, and that's why we want to otherwise properly plan this out before just, you know, maybe doing a quick, you know, mill and overlay or pulverize and relay are two very fast approaches to doing this, to just remove the existing asphalt and put down new asphalt, leave it at that. It also gives us some time to find out what are some of the issues that have, you know, created that deterioration. I think everyone would probably acknowledge that there has been an increase in traffic. However, I would tend to say that that's a part of what it is. However, and I think some people have probably already been made aware of this, is that in order for this to work, even this temporary part of it, one of the other more underlying issues that you know, that traffic alone isn't necessarily creating the problem, but it's a combination of things. And it's when you have that water on the road and the water has no place to go, what you've created is a base underneath that asphalt that gets soft. And so now when all that additional traffic, especially the heavy traffic, comes in it, and asphalt is actually a flexible pavement. So every time you drive over it, it is actually flexing underneath your tires. And that's exactly how asphalt tends to fail, is that it flexes and eventually cracks. In addition to just its length, it will expand and contract the same. But, you know, many of those failures are caused because of that. And it's that combination. So, well, you know, unless we did something drastically to reroute traffic like that, it's still gonna end up being a problem unless we can get the water off of the road. So that's something else that then needs to yet be engineered into whatever this final product is. And we're gonna try to get started a little bit on that even this time. And I think some of you have been notified, and it's something that I don't like. You know, if you ever get past my house, I live on the south end of Minnesota Avenue there, you'll see all my little trees. In fact, I was just amazed the other day that many of them that I planted, even when my son was born, he just recently turned 12. I mean, now I've got acorns and stuff like that, and so they're finally maturing into something. You know, I would hate to have to cut any one of them down. Know that, so I know this, but it is gonna actually require that some of the trees there be removed. And it's just otherwise unfortunate, because it's the only way we can, you know, engineer to get the water off the road, unless we were to drastically, of course, change the road. I mean, curb and gutter would be the only other approach, but even that wouldn't guarantee that the trees could stay, because the additional excavation to put that in, you know, may still require them to remove, you know, if we have to disturb enough of the roots, they may just no longer survive. So in order even for this and for the future, this is gonna be the first phase of not just the repavement, but also what we're gonna be putting in is some features, swales essentially, to just direct the water off the road and get it off even the shoulders of the road, so that it can infiltrate and not get up underneath the road, which is what it's doing now. It's getting in through the cracks in the pavement, it's getting in from the sides, and getting into the gravel, the base beneath it, and it's creating soft spots in the road. And I think even just looking at it in an aerial way here, if this doesn't have the topography on it, but if it did, I think you would identify that the worst spots in the road correspond with areas that are low spots where water is collected. So that's become, even in this, kind of priority number one, is dealing with the water issue so that we can get, even on a temporary basis, the most life out of this road possible. As David identified, you know, we don't wanna just hopefully take our chances that it'll make it through the winter. We're trying to engineer this and put this together to, you know, help ensure that, so we have some level of confidence that we will indeed make it through the winter. And this is probably gonna be the best we can do at that without getting, you know, very expensive. So I think even when we set up before, we had kind of, you know, roughly agreed that what we were thinking to spend and looking for a solution to that, which is, I believe it was about $50,000. And the way the bids came in on this particular project, and we've been working with American Asphalt to come up with some, you know, other solutions to see what we could get to get the best product. And I think the bids came in at about 45,000. So we got very good bid back on this project for what we're doing. And in fact, it's actually allowing us to do more than we were hoping to do before. The original bid was actually not a complete overlay, but a partial overlay of the road. But the bids came in very favorable that this is gonna allow us to come up with a complete overlay of the project. So, which should, again, help us to, you know, get through the winter and into next year, where we can do more work by just sealing off the entire road with fresh pavement. Because that newer asphalt is gonna be, you know, of course, you know, watertight comparative to the cracks that exist in, beneath it. So really what this project comes down to is really two elements. And what's gonna be the first week of this 2 week, as I mentioned when John had asked, 2 week closure that we'll have. And the reason for the closure is to try to just minimize the overall duration of what this project is. To cut in those swales, so that's pretty much gonna be, week one is gonna be two things. It's gonna be creating the swales so we can get the water off the road, as well as just trying to clean up the pavement. We're responsible between the two governments here to doing some of the prep work there, and that's part of what's allowing us to keep the contracted value of this project down. And then we're gonna do the prep work, you know, on the roadway, because some of that, the pothole material, that asphalt needs to come out, because it's just not necessarily compatible long-term with the asphalt they're gonna put down. And it itself would create some weak points in there that, you know, might be more prone to fail. So we'll do that, as well as the traffic control. We'll be setting up a signed detour around that for that duration. So starting Monday morning, what time did they say they were gonna put that out?
Starting around 5 a.m., we'll start laying it out.
So about 5 a.m. So shortly thereafter,
6, 7 o'clock, it'll be closed.
we'll have the closure in place. And of course, if anyone has any issues throughout there, as that's going on, it's early morning, you need to get up. I mean, by all means, we'll make every accommodation we can. I mean, we're not asking people to get out of their houses at 4 o'clock in the morning and go find someplace else to park. Not at all. So if you just really go about your business, and, you know, we'll accommodate you to get you in and out as best we can. And much of that will be, you know, it'll be local forces trying to get that work done that first week. And so we'll, you know, we'll just try to coordinate with you as best we can on what activities you're doing and where we're working to get that done. The second week then is when American Asphalt is gonna come in. So we've got 1 week to prep everything for them, and then a second week, and they're gonna come in and do their work. So they're gonna end up doing some milling, because we wanna know where the new is gonna join up to the old. They're gonna have to mill all those areas, so all, you know, individual driveways, as well as, you know, each end, Gerald Road there, we milled that way. We'll get a nice joint between the two of them, because if we're putting an overlay in, one thing we didn't want to do was just feather it out so it's nice and thin, because that's where you're going to end up seeing failures, especially any place you're going to go against the green with the plow on there. Your tendency to bring it up, so we'll make sure that that's, you know, nice and tight. Again, just for part of that longevity. You know, even though we're calling this, you know, temporary, again, we just don't want to take great risk in the fact that it may not fail. There's no reason to spend everybody's money on it to get into January and start seeing things, you know, fall apart. And at that time thinking, boy, maybe we should have spent, you know, that extra $1,500 to do whatever. So we try to look at it as something that would be, you know, as long a term as we otherwise can get to ensure we'll get in there within our financial constraints. And I think ultimately we've come up with that, working with American Asphalt on the type of asphalt that we're, you know, going to use, to the thicknesses we're using, to the approach we're doing as far as joining those in, and then, you know, as well as trying to get the water off the road, to help with that issue. So that's pretty much the project.
One other thing.
Yes.
We met at 6:30 and we requested bids for the tree removal.
Okay.
And we got one in for 4,000, and my understanding that they will start then first thing Monday.
Monday.
Monday morning?
So that'll be
Okay.
the first
First
week
thing,
to be out.
all right, so yeah, we'll do that, and then I'm sure it'll be in right after that to get the swale started cutting it, yep. So, very good. So yeah, we'll have that, so week one, and then, that week two, for the most part, there'll maybe be short delays and stuff, depending upon where we are with trucks and excavators and what else we're using for the first week, as far as those of you that live on Country Club need to get to your driveways. So we're gonna do that. However, when they get into actual paving in week two, that's more specifically where there may be times where we just can't let you in until things happen. And we'll have to allow American Asphalt time to get things done and put into place, and, you know, asphalt to cool and stuff before driving, because we don't wanna risk that we'll end up with a project that may fail again, if we're a little premature on those things. But even that shouldn't necessarily be too
Couple
too bad.
hours
Yeah.
at the longest, so.
So, and then I would hope, and we'll just have to coordinate that, so I won't make any promises this time, but I would tend to think that at the end of the day, at least during week one, we would be able to allow everyone back in if you haven't, if you're, you know, patient and parking on a side street, to get back in. And out, with American, you know, we'll do the best to, if we have to even knock on people's doors, let them know that there may be an instance, depending upon their work schedule and, you know, maybe weather for the week, that they're planning to work a little bit later, and we're just asking people to, you know, if you can park on a side street for the night, so, you know, American can work, you know, late, get things done, and then, you know, the idea then, hopefully then by the next day, you're back in. The 2 weeks should hopefully give us a little bit of flexibility, even with some, you know, weather delays, but of course, you know, there's of course no guarantee with that either. If for whatever reason it gets really rainy, that could extend a little bit longer, but our estimates of kind of time to do that allow us probably each week, you know, a little bit of time, you know, downtime for weather if it should occur, so we feel fairly confident on the 2 week time period to be able to complete what it is we need to do. You know, with that though, as far as like the swales and stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll have all the restoration necessarily in place at that, so, you know, we might be coming back in after even the pavement is done to, you know, touch up that and plant seed and stuff, like that. And we'll have to see exactly how fast that goes. So, anything maybe that I missed in
I'd like to ask a question.
Absolutely.
There's, let's see the concern, there's, talking about tree removal. And the area of tree removal for this phase is, between Carroll's Lane and Gerald's Road. And we have six of our neighbors that live in those 6 houses there. And any trees that are within the right of way, which you saw the pink stakes, those are the trees that are being removed. There will be, at this time,
Yes.
there will need to be tree removal north of there next year when the whole engineering gets done, but we're gonna let that engineering tell us how that works. So right now, it's just that one area, because that's the lowest, holding most of the water. So that's where the tree removal is.
Yes.
And we have personally talked to the owners of those 6. 3 of the trees are in 3 of the 6 homes, and we've talked to them personally about the tree situation, so. Okay.
So I guess with that, if anyone has specific questions, we do have a roll plot, you know, here, if there's something that you need to otherwise, you know, look at the map and ask a specific question, or if you just have a broad question about other things. Because I know one of the questions I have, which would be not within ours, since we don't do the collection here, would be like garbage and recycle collection for them during the 2 weeks.
They go to Barb.
Okay,
Yeah, I've already talked to Harders and.
Okay.
And Fridays, he likes to start early anyway, so he could probably be there before you're even there.
okay,
So if you don't put it out on, Thursday night, I would suggest you do that. Now, when you get into the asphalt stage, I would think that early in the morning, that still wouldn't be an issue, correct?
probably not, we'd have to see exactly what they're doing now, because the collection along here would, you said Friday?
Fridays.
I mean, our hope would be that second week by Friday, American is essentially done.
Okay.
You know, especially if we have good weather, I would definitely hope so, but otherwise, you know, if we do have bad weather, you know, we'll otherwise have to see, I don't know, I'd hope that we'd be able to do that, but
Okay.
until we talk to them, I don't know for a
And
fact.
garbage trucks are relatively heavy, would you like him to enter from the north or the south? He will do either. which is better. Does it matter?
I'm not
I don't think it really
sure,
matters.
it really, yeah, that it really does. I would tend to think, you know, I don't think it ultimately, you know, matters to us. I don't know how they're not sure approach it. I know
Maybe
like
from the
first
south, cause everyone is on that side of the road.
it'd be probably easier
Just go
than to,
straight through.
right, I was just gonna say, since that's where most of the work, especially week one, is gonna be happening, and there'll probably be even some other things happening in week two if need be. That'd probably be the easiest way to communicate with anybody to know what's
Okay.
happening, because they would either see people working, or if they're there earlier and they get through, hopefully then we'll communicate through you to just, you know, if all goes well, we'll just give them the green light and say, when you get there, go to it. And, that, otherwise we'll probably be, someone will be in the area, and then we can coordinate.
Like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I don't think, Fridays, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it.
Yeah, okay, alright,
Seen them go through about 2 o'clock in the morning.
that early, okay, hey, very early, alright, well,
We have a total of 9 residents that live on that side. 6 between the Carrolls and Geralds, and then 3 north of Geralds. We've got Kim and Clarice and Zarowski's. I think those are the 3, and then the country club. So that's what we're talking about for garbage.
okay,
Any issues with the mail?
No, post office is pretty accommodating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no concern.
So as far as garbage go, just put it, we're telling everybody tonight, put it out in front. If something happens and that changes, we'll knock on the door or move it down to the corner where they can pick it up or something, right? Okay.
alright. And I guess, unless you can think of anything else, then I guess what, I don't, yeah, if anyone has any questions, we're here to take.
Is Country
Oh,
Club considered a truck route?
It is, yes.
Is it gonna remain a truck route?
Yes, it will be. And that, it actually, I wasn't around for the, in the 80s when the agreement was put in place, but that is, in a sense, it's the whole reason that agreement exists.
Is there any talk of lowering the speed limit at all?
Or
So
enforcing
maybe
it.
25 to 30?
Enforcing it.
Just enforce it, no one goes the speed limit.
I guess,
Even
with
now.
so many, David bring up that there's so many residential people that live there, can we make it 30 to kind of accommodate walking and biking? And
Oh, we would certainly take a look at that speed limit.
Yeah.
question.
I mean,
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what's on the sign, they're not going the speed limit, they are speeding excessively, and especially the semis. Yeah, they are going full bore, they've gotta be going at least 45, and we live on the northern part of Country Club. They're, by the time they hit the curb, some of them have to use their jack brakes, they're going about 45, 50 miles an hour down Country Club.
Okay.
And they're sleeping overnight there also.
Across where there's that extra, like a lane,
Mhm.
that people pass when I'm trying to turn into that very first northern driveway, people
Mhm.
always go off into the ditch. We've had semis parked there overnight, leaving their engine running, and we've called the city, the sheriff's department, I should
Mhm.
say, non-emergency sheriff's department. They don't seem concerned at all. I'm concerned as a
Mhm.
woman, living there and having a trucker sleep there overnight.
Sure.
That's not
Understandable.
okay.
It's used as a passing lane also. And there's people walking, young teens walking to work all the time.
Families with
Mothers with
strollers.
strollers. We are terrified that somebody's going to, because they don't slow down to pass you on the right. It doesn't matter if you can move into the left lane to get into the driveway to get out of their way.
Mhm.
That's why that's all worn there. If your barrels and sign stays there all week, I'll be surprised, because that's how fast they come around the corner
Okay.
there. And the sign that says it goes down to 1 lane is covered with tree branches. You can't be seen
You
all
can't see
summer.
it.
In the winter it can be seen, but, we have, talked to people that.
Well, those branches ought to be removed.
Yeah.
Yes, that would
It
be
may
good, but I
happen.
think if someone would enforce the speed, they would make an immense amount of money. And then if people started walking,
Well,
they'd have to.
always looking for a new revenue source.
It is revenue, but also it would be top of mind awareness, people
Sure,
would say, hey,
Absolutely.
be careful on Country Club, they're ticketing, and they
Mhm.
mean it,
Oh,
no
yeah.
warnings, they're
Yeah.
ticketing. Because someone's gonna get terribly hurt, and I pray it's not any of our residents, because it's just an unfortunate
Sure.
set of circumstances.
And for what we're doing, of course, right now, it's gonna happen in the next weeks, I mean, we're not, planning, to change speed limits or whatever, we can definitely talk about enforcement, when we get into the engineering, the other stuff, we can definitely look at
Sure.
at that and see what it is, a long time, as well as, whatever other accommodations to hopefully make it safer for pedestrians and bikers to do that, that will all be part of phase 2 to get that. So I definitely appreciate the comments.
I have another concern.
Yes.
I have a medically fragile parent at 1609 Country Club Drive, and in the last 6 months, we've had the ambulance out there 3 times
Mhm.
since December. I have to be able to have access to get her out either to the hospital or have an ambulance come in, because she is in very frail health. So that's a very big concern that I have, and I don't know where the Wallachs live, Roberts, right? Where it dead ends onto our land. I don't know, there's a kind of a embankment.
Yeah.
If that could be like cut in and just some gravel put down, I can mow the grass down to nothing in the event that I would have to get out if it wasn't terribly serious. But that is probably my biggest concern of coming, is being able to get access for ambulance service and or me having to take her if it's not as serious.
Sure.
Okay.
EMS services in general, fire department.
Yeah.
Will never be held up because
Yeah.
of the construction, regardless of
They-
what is going on the job site, they always have access at all times.
They'll be able to
Yes,
Yep.
regardless of what is happening on site, emergency services will have access.
That's good to know, thank you.
Yes.
When you are putting together your plans for phase 2, will you take into consideration that this is a truck route? Because right now, my house just shakes, the pictures rattle on the wall and these trucks pound through there. If it's going to be a truck route, would it not be given the same consideration as other county roads that are weight posted for winter and things? I mean, those roads are given consideration. We have our little tiny Country Club Drive there that is open season,
Right.
beating the hell out of that.
Well, I mean, probably not the answer you're looking for, and we will definitely give it consideration in the design of the road itself to make sure that it can hopefully withstand the additional trucks that go through there. In other aspects of it, I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking of, but, that we wouldn't necessarily be doing. So, hopefully the road should hold up, so they shouldn't be bouncing around. We'll have smooth pavement for as long as we can, try to build in longevity into the road surface itself. So if that, but as far as the weight restrictions or doing anything like that, I haven't memorized the agreement there, but that, again, with this whole truck route and what it is, there is, I know, a specific part of it, how it's worded exactly. And the reason it was put into place, the agreement was, it clearly says that the town cannot put weight restrictions on this stretch of road, because of the truck route. So it in essence eliminates any possibility of weight restrictions being imposed upon it, just to make sure that the trucks can get in and out of the industrial park.
But then how do you protect the road if there's going to be, that's a double-edged sword there. Because I know you will protect other roads, but this one is not. And we really were not constructed for what's going down that road.
Well, when that agreement was put in place, and I haven't seen the actual plans, I know that was the consideration because it was a matter of not having weight restrictions on it. So the road had to be built to a higher standard to ensure that it has that. One of the issues that, of course, has just happened over the years is the fact that, the water has no place to go, and that, like I said, is definitely a contributing factor to the condition it's in today. But we're gonna be looking at that as, there are different ways, and it's a matter of just engineering the proper road, and that goes, even beneath whatever we put on the surface, whether it's asphalt or concrete, it goes even well beneath that to build the proper base and a roadway to withstand that, even through the winter conditions. So,
Will you feather the road then to our existing driveways? Because right now mine dips down and it is a pond.
well, I don't know
And
exactly what
ice.
it looked like, but that's part of what, that comes in that second phase of doing the proper engineering to make sure, once we look more at, topography and see how everything is, to get in there, and there may be some slight adjustments to the elevation of things just to get everything to work out better. So I don't have a specific answer to you, but that's what some of the things we'll be looking at, why we're doing it in 2 phases.
What is your address? Yeah.
1711, I'm right across the driveway from the country club driveway.
Okay.
That certainly, that second phase will probably be an informational public hearing
Yes, I would
also.
definitely anticipate.
Those are the things we're really, just bring all that stuff in ahead of time and let's get our oar in the water, early on this, so.
And the gentleman in the back, I guess what you had.
Yeah, so I'm the representative of the Stevens Point Country Club.
Yeah.
So in the span of those 2 weeks of construction, we have 2 weddings in excess of 200 people, and we also have 2 golf outings in
Are you
excess of 150.
suggesting we crash those?
So I'm concerned about the amount of traffic that those are gonna obviously be bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, all of our deliveries come via semi, food deliveries, alcohol deliveries,
Mm-hmm.
FedEx. I mean, FedEx is out there almost every single day, so I just wanna make sure that I'm giving people the right instructions on what to do to get to our property. Obviously, I'm a little concerned when you say that we're gonna be closed for periods of time. We have anywhere from 50 to 100 golfers on our course every single day.
Yes, and during most of it, now, during the paving, correct me if I misspeak, Joe, but except the duration of when they're paving and that very short thereafter, our intent is to allow traffic up until your entrance, your driveway. That's where the hard closure will be and no traffic beyond there. So coming from the north, especially during week 1, the only thing people would be is just directed if they're coming from the south, but coming from the north, they should be able to get in and out without any issues.
Okay.
So yours is gonna
And
be
that's semi-traffic and everything? That should be
semi-traffic
fine?
and everything, yeah. So all your deliveries and stuff, everyone should be able to go about their normal business. We'll have to then communicate when we get into week 2, as far as when the paving comes, because there will be periods of time when we're gonna have to just not let anyone in so we can get the pavement down and whatnot. So we'll have to communicate. And Joe will be generally out there and available throughout that, there, so
Yeah.
make sure the two of you are
Either,
communicating.
either myself or the general manager or even our golf pro, we're the
Okay.
3 points of contact.
All right, before we leave tonight, let's communicate so we make sure we have everyone's information.
Sure, yep.
With that, being said, then the folks that live on Country Club, like Clarice and Kim and all that, would you like, should they be coming in from the north too and going past the Country Club and trying to get through, or should they come in from the south and come through the subdivision? I think they're wanting to know, they know this place like the back of their hand, so whatever we tell them, they'll.
I would think for residents and guests there, I'm not sure it really matters which way they come, at least during week 1. If they, Jody, did you have a preference you were?
I think from the south would be more beneficial, and to use the subdivision to come down Gerald's to get on. I think if we start staggering the barricades, that you're gonna get more through traffic. than
There's
we tend to.
3 properties, as I said, north of Gerald's, so.
And I would think, yeah, for those, on the
Those
far
would
north
be
end,
accessible.
yeah,
Yeah, come in
they
from
probably
the
would
north.
come in from the north, on the far north end.
With that being said, when the overpass was under construction, there was a terrible issue with semis that would bypass that and then find themselves in a position where they had to back up, which became amusing and scary.
Yes.
How are you planning to learn from the overpass construction to mark that more clear for semi-truck traffic? Or are we?
Well, we've been working on some additional signage to identify specifically what our detour exploring and where the closures are that's happening. I would tend to think through much of the overpass, although there was a detour forward, it pretty much just said detour or Hoover Drive, and it didn't even necessarily depend upon where you were, whether or not you ever observed that the road was actually closed. All you really knew was it was simply detoured. So one of our things to do is to get out there and let people know that the road is indeed closed, so that'll hopefully deter some. Of course, some people are always gonna try to get through that anyways, and we can't stop, everybody unless we posted a police officer there throughout the duration. So with that, we also have the portable message boards. Are we planning on keeping
We're
those?
looking into that.
Yeah, I know we were looking at, that are out there right now that indicate that work will begin on, trying to otherwise look at to keep those and utilize those throughout there, just to get additional messages out to people, whatever we might do, but we'll do the best we can with, that sort of, signage and whatnot. you know, trying to get the word out, trying to get into, you know, we've got someone right here who's probably one of the best sources of getting information out to people here, and I'm sure she will help get the word out, won't you? So, she's nodding for the camera, that you can see, through that, and that's what we'll try to do. I think the other thing, you know, hopefully we'll, you know, in essence, you know, I don't wanna say benefit from, but that's probably the best word that comes to mind at the moment is, you know, the short duration of what this project otherwise is, should hopefully not see as many issues, throughout that. And I do think even if a few people come through there, you know, they'll see that we'll, you know, hopefully they'll see, cause we'll definitely mark it farther to the north on what, you know, on the closure, so there will be a soft closure right up by the La Quinta, and as well as the harbor closure here, so people should hopefully be aware.
Couple of questions I
Yes.
have. Do these folks have a contact person and a phone number that they're aware of? They have an issue?
I don't know, and that was otherwise in the letter, but, there as far as on the letterhead, but otherwise, you know, definitely share with you, I think, you know, most of those things you're dealing, which is why Joe is even here. You can just call the engineering office there, and otherwise we will get even out other information to everyone on, Joe will be the point person for construction related activities in those instances.
We have his contact, that's good. The other thing is, you mentioned that, you may need another public information meeting prior to the second week, is that?
Not prior to the second week, prior to the second phase.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so before we get in and finalize the
Yeah,
design
okay,
for what's gonna
okay,
happen.
Yeah, that makes sense, that's a
Yeah,
biggie.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to say something to your question about the detours and the trucks and stuff. They gave us tonight, a detour signage map of how they're gonna be setting up detour signage throughout the entire area to make people aware, what's going on there. That along with, I think Pete, during the overhead construction, it was about half or 3/4 of the way through that. We put up the universal no trucks allowed sign going into the subdivision, and I can tell you, it didn't stop everyone, but those that did come in knew they could be arrested, so it really reduced it quite a bit. And again, this isn't 4 or 5 months long, this is 12 to 14 days.
Jeremy?
So on your detour, what is the detour route? Is it going through town, or are we gonna be some sort of signage on the interstate for, especially trucks? You know, so they're not come into the, you know, take the off ramp and come around and then, you know, realize when they get around the corner by La Quinta, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now? And now we got trucks going through subdivision again, or not even getting to that point.
Right, yeah, as much as we'd otherwise like to think we could, you know, utilize the interstate, that becomes a lot of coordination with the DOT and just kind of given the time for them, so it will be coming through the city of Stevens Point, so they'll be routed over to Michigan.
Okay, and then another question, I just noticed on the way here tonight on the message board, it said, road work to start August 19th. Can we change that to road closed? So people that are utilizing it, at least the rest of this week, they can start saying, oh, I gotta take a different route next week.
Yes, yeah.
Can we change that?
Yeah.
That was the plan after tonight,
Okay.
to make that switch.
So you're gonna put the clothes up there now?
Yeah, on that.
Yes.
corner of this road,
Yeah,
we're gonna
that'd
have
be
to
great,
close.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I think we'd probably get through this unless there was some major holdup that, and agreed upon that there may be a delay in anything, but I haven't heard anyone say, no, don't work on country clubs, so.
Yeah.
We'll proceed on Monday then as planned. Yes, sir.
Any idea when you'll have the meeting regarding the major reconstruction?
At this point in time, I don't know when that will be, given the nature of this and, you know, just other engineer work, not that this plays second fiddle to it, but just, because this doesn't have the extensive utility work, which is usually one of the biggest things when it comes to bidding projects in the spring, and over the winter time. You know, our first priority is gonna be try to get those projects, you know, under control so that we can work on a schedule to get those out when it's the best bidding environment. Yeah, so this will probably follow something there. So I don't really have a good plan, because I haven't quite worked out the entire schedule on those yet. But I just need to work that out. So I don't know exactly that, but I would anticipate, you know, sometime over the winter months, because this will probably be a slightly later, this won't be like an early January bid, but probably something later in the winter time, so around there, hopefully our schedule doesn't fall like that. What is everyone doing at Christmas time?
Do you have the graphics already done for that phase two? Do you know what it's going to look like?
No,
Or not yet?
we don't. We
Not
have
done yet.
the survey work done, so we're creating base mapping, and that's all we really have at the moment. Because in fact, even with, as far as the, local officials, we haven't we're kind of working to get this underway before we get too far ahead of ourselves and end up tripping ourselves through this. Get this going, and then we'll plan. We haven't even really set up that meeting, although I'm sure it'll happen not too far down the future, to kind of get together and do some of those concepts so we can understand everybody's, at least major concerns about the road and kind of what everyone has as far as the city officials, town officials, as far as what their vision is for that roadway. So at least it'll give us a place to start. And then we'll start putting some of the things together and then have, one, maybe even two public informational meetings along the way, depending upon, how things kind of get started in the engineering process there. And then we'll try to take in all the public comment and then incorporate that in.
Certainly from the town hall standpoint, we're very, very supportive of that second phase and getting that moving.
So I have a question for the residences that are north of Gerald's Drive. As far as the driveways, I live right on the northeast corner of Country Club and Gerald's, and I've noticed I have a storm sewer drain in the middle of my driveway. For those of us that are impacted by that, is that gonna be affected in phase two? Or are you doing this in phase one as far as with the road that you're gonna be repaving and at this point?
I'm not sure I quite follow you, ma'am.
So-
Very well.
The drive, right.
Oh, you're the one with that there.
Yes, I have.
At this phase, I don't think we're gonna be, I don't believe we're cutting into that on there, so that area North Jersey is gonna have very light work doing, we'll try to get a little bit more water off the road, but it's really that southern part that we're really gonna do, so that'll be mostly a phase two
Okay.
issue to do it, so.
Are the swales on both sides of the road? Just
As far as this phasing goes, we'll probably do what I would call, a little bit of shouldering on the other side of the road, the country club side of the road, but mostly the swales will be, on that side of the road. And like I said, the aggressive nature of any swales are gonna be on that southern stretch between Jersey and that, because that's the worst area there, which can even be seen because the road is deteriorated on both sides. The other one is, relatively speaking to that, is much more spotty and intermittent, so.
And for those of us that have sprinkler systems within where they're putting the swales, how does that work?
Not so well when you're working with an excavator or anything equipment to do that. So I think otherwise just be prepared that, if you know where they are and can mark them out, I'm sure as we're otherwise out there, everyone will do their best. I would anticipate that somewhere along the line, they'll probably will be, damaged and probably need some repair. As far as the amount of installation, I'll have to actually defer to Pete on what he thinks of that, because that could definitely be cut the swale. I guess for the timing factor, I could definitely see cutting the swales in that and having to, deal with that as a restoration after the fact, working with the individual owners as far as any sort of reinstallation.
Yeah, we've never really dealt with something like that, I guess.
You got it now.
Outside the country,
Yep.
usually we don't, we did hit some, I remember like about 3 years ago, one of them. And the resident actually, once us guys went through, then they called up their lawn person, and he came and stuck a new head in the hose,
At the owner's expense, or is that something that would be part of the restoration where the?
At the owner's expense.
Is it in the right of way? If it's in the right of way, it's the owner's expense.
If it's in, say that again?
If it's in the right of way, it's the owner's expense. Because the right of ways are meant for utilities and road work.
You essentially have a private utility and a public right of way.
So can they be reburied into the swale?
They can be if you wish to do it, but we'll have to probably coordinate. And we'll have to talk about that. I can't actually speak, it's not our city's right away to see what it is, so it'd be up to these individuals here to say that. I guess my suggestion on that, I would say, is if you wanna do this, probably wait until phase two is done. I'm not sure I would invest any money into it, just to make sure that if anything should change through the engineering, that, if we do start to adjust some of the elevations, there may be some rework of the swales, such, so I don't know if I would do anything until at least then.
What's the reasoning for putting the swales on the residential side?
And not on the other.
Eventually there will be. What we're otherwise trying to do is work within, what we have. We've got additional utilities that need coordinating on that side. And in some instances, we have less right of way to work with on that side. So and I think it's more on the northern end of it actually, but to do that. So we're just trying to do it, again, this is supposed to be, this first phase is we're trying to keep these costs low and try to work within there. We otherwise evaluate and look at, see that cutting those in and working them on there with the existing roadway is gonna be much easier on that side. Because that's where most of there's the existing structures there. I think there are a few structures on the other side. They're generally, the ones on the other side, I think are, generally speaking, but don't hold me to all of them, are tighter to the roadway, where we have a little bit more leeway on that side to work these in. And again, like I said, this is the temporary part of it, but we know in order to get through, help ensure we get through the winter, we need to do something. And this isn't the final design on what that's gonna be. There will be more with the second phase of things to ensure that the roadway stays dry and lasts as long as possible.
Is there any budget for replacing the trees or reimbursing or somehow, because we like it in the front yard. So is there any program like Tree City USA or something that we could access to get trees replaced?
That would be another, I guess, question for the town themselves. I mean, within the city, if it was city right away, we would work with our forester on tree planting, especially if a resident wanted to, being that this isn't within the city, the town's right away, we would not participate in that, but, we could.
Are those trees that are
Yeah, I'm
in
sure
the
it
towns
helps.
right away?
They're like mine.
Yeah. And I'm sure, our forester would make some recommendations for things and help with some placements and stuff, but as far as like a reimbursement or a planting, that we would not do, but I'm sure we could get.
So I can call the Stevens Point Forester to get more information?
For this particular project, he would, I'm sure, be willing to help
So,
out. Point me
I
in the
got
right
something to
direction.
add. I had talked to Todd, our city forester, about that already, and he would work with the town hall here after the phase 2 project, and to get some plantings put back in, and then the town hall would reimburse the city for that cost.
That'd be amazing.
Cause there's
He's
definitely,
well open to working with you guys on
and
that.
there's definitely benefits to doing that, as long as we're not impeding on what those swales do and the functionality of those swales. I hope everyone realizes we don't like removing the trees, because trees are actually very helpful as far as traffic calming. I mean, you get that more residential neighborhood feel. You also, as you're traveling through there, as the trees come in, actually kind of create a visual barrier that focuses your attention, down the road for one, as well as makes it just feel tighter. People have a tendency to drive slower in those situations, so we definitely would, whatever sort of design we'll work on, we'll try to be as tree friendly as possible, so that any, the residents that, wish to have trees, could do so.
How many swales will you put in?
Well, what the final is, I don't know, but there will be, ultimately swales on both sides of the roadway, ultimately, for the entire,
For the whole length.
entire length of it, yes.
So I'm assuming that will involve a lot of trees being cut down on the country club side as well?
Yes, it will.
Will there be any request for the country club to add some sort of netting to prevent balls from hitting our houses? The trees are about the only.
That's
big
going to
stuff.
be a board of directors question. I'm imagining in the next, meetings that you plan for phase 2, we will have to get some board representatives here
Mm-hmm.
in order to discuss that with you as well.
It's already been an increased problem since the tree removal 2 years ago.
Do you experience that?
Oh,
Yeah, all the time.
Really?
All the time.
That's the first we've
I'm a
heard of
golfer,
it.
so I like to
Alright, so I'll make a recommendation to my board of directors. I'm the director of food and beverage, so let's make I provide the alcohol and food.
All right. So the heating fluid, that's
Yeah, not on the first one.
That's first
But no, I
time
will
Jan
make
and
a-
I have heard
that's
about that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No, they
I don't know if they're aware that that was an issue,
They're
so.
aware, we've called.
Yeah, that don't mean much. So, I will make a recommendation to the board of directors, that's the best I can do with regard to that situation. But yes, we will have to have representatives from the country club board, with regard to phase two and how that's going to affect the course. Because we already just went through a redesign, so we're gonna have to work with, as far as the design goes, I'm assuming. I don't know a whole lot of details on that, so I can't really speak for that, but, I'm imagining if there were a lot of trees to come down on that edge of the course, it'll affect the course, so there will be more discussions with the board.
We certainly would have some interest in protecting our homeowners.
Thank you.
Is there,
Golf lessons?
No, I don't know if
Free
you
golf
know.
Are
lessons
trees
for
coming
everyone
down
in
on
town.
that side for phase one, or is that more phase two?
I'm sorry, what?
The trees on the country
On the
club,
country-
is that more phase two?
That's phase, yeah, phase two, so.
is there even a swag on how long the process will be for phase two?
Well, I mean, we'll get to design it, so, I mean, the intent is to do it during next construction season. I'm thinking maybe
8 to 12 weeks.
yeah. So, I mean, 2 to 3 months probably to complete it once they start construction, so throughout the next summer.
In general, what will the hours of work be from a noise standpoint? Just so we know when we have to like drug our dog and panic.
Right. I mean, generally speaking, I would think everything would be contained probably in a 7 to 7 timeframe, and, you know, during, normally, you know, Peter likes to put in really long hours, but I think he's agreeable to no more than 12 hours a day. So, it's the same thing with the cities, you know, crews may work some longer days to get it done, but it would be that, when it comes to American Asphalt, that's pretty much where, depending on what they're doing, they may plan for a long day, so, you know, they may do a 7 to 7 sort of.
Not like 4 in the morning starts, right?
Yeah, nothing, no, it shouldn't be anything like that, so.
Yeah,
that's the garbage man coming through.
Do we have other questions of Scott? Or Dave, or any of us?
Well, I had
Mark?
just one thing I wanted to mention, I know this is more phase two, but is there any talk about extending the green circle and having more of an off-road path for bicyclists and walkers?
Yes, I mean, definitely, I mean, it's been, you know, brought up, like I said, again, we haven't had an actual
David,
formal
why don't
sit-down
you talk to that issue?
meeting on that, but.
Dave will say.
Well, certainly the city is very aware. In fact, Joel Lemke, who works utilities for the city, he's on their board. So there has been a lot of interest in putting a multi-purpose path on the country club side of Country Club Drive that would be detached from the road, because we have 8,500 to 9,000 cars going down there. And that's the last place I'd like to walk or ride my bike also. So there's talk about that, whether or not it'll fit in there engineering wise, that remains to be seen yet. We have put out per Chairman Holdridge's direction a month or two ago, when we realized this was gonna happen. I alerted one of the significant leaders of the Green Circle and let them know of the two-phase thing going on here, and that they might want to start thinking about how they could participate in the planning for that future. But that's up to them. They have a lot to say in that also.
Yeah, one of the issues is the cost.
Yeah.
Which always
And the rooms.
is an issue, I guess.
But that'd be best to have it separate, if at all possible.
How much right of way is there?
It's full of utilities and poles and boxes, and it's
I
pretty
know when
tight.
we, I forget exactly what the dimension is, I know when we just looked at it, you know, initially after doing the topo for it, there is, or there should be sufficient room, with a road of similar width. I think it would actually narrow up the road a little bit over what it is, and remove some of the shoulder, because right now I think it's 17-foot lane, so essentially there's a shoulder on the road. The 17 feet may not be exact, but it's wider, so maybe narrowing that up and then taking people off there to do it. So it would fit swales each side and a 10-foot path is a possibility. We didn't do all the final engineering to know if that's from end to end, but generally speaking, something like that, you know, we believe could be fit in there.
There's no talk about expanding it to a 4-lane, we kept it at the way it is.
That discussion has not taken place yet, no.
We brought that up, during the listening sessions for the overpass, when that was going on. And, both myself and some other neighbors showed up at those and said, if the traffic counts go up, you know, we got 4 lanes coming over, we got 4 lanes in Stevens Point, and then we narrow it down to go through the residential part between the country club and our neighbors. Would now be the time to look at expanding, can we plan on that? Or at least look at it, and the response we received was, the numbers don't support that discussion at this time.
Yeah, the DOT had mentioned that, and they didn't anticipate that it would, so. we're
Exactly, so,
hoping it doesn't.
we'll see.
Barb?
I have a comment, considering the safety, especially on the north end with all the residents. You know how busy, Highway 10 is, and a lot of truck traffic comes on Highway 10. And I'm glad Jeremy's here. Would the city consider talking to the businesses in the industrial park and have the businesses suggest to the trucking firms to use the southern route? When you're coming from the east, take R and come around, I-39, take double H. Even coming from the west, you know, Water Street is a truck route you could go over on Pat Street. Now, you're not gonna get everybody because, you know, obviously we have some businesses on the north end, but the majority of the businesses are on the south end. And so if the city could encourage them to talk to their trucking firms and say, would you, you know, please use the southern route. You know, obviously you won't get anybody, but it can certainly decrease it by a great deal. And maybe then, you know, allow for a safer place for the walkers and just for the pedestrians in general. And I don't see why they wouldn't, you know, at least talk to the firms. We're not talking, we're
Right.
talking
I'm definitely
extra
a
miles.
big believer in it never hurts to ask.
So,
Okay. That's a good point.
Are you saying during these phases?
No,
Just-
going forward and then, you know, having, at some point, I'm sure you I think, since it's your area, you know, you get the businesses together or send them a letter or however you want to communicate with them. And just suggest that, could you have your trucking firms coming from the south? I don't know that it really matters to them. I think a lot of that is habit.
I think especially during this first phase though, when the overpass was being done, you know, those truckers had the luxury that the workers weren't on the country club stretch, so they could do their backups and maneuvers. Now there's gonna be a safety issue with all those workers there as those semis try to turn around, back up. I think one of them drove over a fire hydrant 2 years ago. That is going to be a safety issue, and you're gonna have to have someone directing those semis almost full time.
What is your name, ma'am?
Melanie
Melanie?
Colt,
And where do you live?
KULT, 1825 Country Club on the corner of Gerald's and Country Club.
I would imagine that a lot of semis will probably be directed to using the country club as their turnaround, which is gonna be unfortunate for the golfers because a lot of them, it's walking traffic. Our pool is right inside the main entrance. So I'm hoping that's not what ends up happening, cause it's not ideal for tons of semi-traffic to be making U-turns in parking lots.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea too, maybe just reach out to Donaldson, Spectra, KI Mobility, and maybe even post a note on their shipping receiving doors, you know, Country Club Drive to be closed these dates, you know, and then maybe show a little map of the alternate route.
Maybe you can make it a habit, huh? That's a good idea too.
So I know our delivery traffic will pull in from the north and then go back out in the north. They don't usually go through the residential areas, because it doesn't really make sense. There's nothing that our food delivery service would be delivering to over there, but, yeah, that would be a big concern for semi-traffic for the 2 weeks.
Any other questions?
David, do you have any party comments?
Do you find this helpful?
Very much.
Great.
We're pleased you showed up. Great.
And thank you to all the work that you've done the last year. I mean, there's been a lot of complaints about Country Club Drive, and I think all of us have seen the town out there constantly trying to
Yeah.
patch. So thank you for doing your best to try to keep it going.
That road crew's done quite a job. Not only there, but with all those branches going down and the weather we've had.
There's been a lot.
We have 82 miles of road. We want to, if there isn't any further questions, why don't we just adjourn?
I'd like to thank Joe and Scott for
Coming
being
out.
here this evening and how pleased that, and nice it's been working, with the city on both of these phases. That's why you have intergovernmental cooperation and we're seeing it here and thanks for taking the lead.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us tonight.